Most people drift through life, waiting for motivation to hit or for the perfect moment to act. But that moment rarely comes. What if you could completely transform your life in just 90 days, mastering focus, habits, and results that others spend years chasing? This guide reveals practical strategies used by top performers to define goals, eliminate distractions, and build unstoppable momentum. Commit fully, track progress, and upgrade your mindset with actionable steps you can start today. Subscribe now to access daily insights that turn intention into consistent, life-changing action. Number 1. Define one clear life goal. You are standing at the edge of 90 days. The calendar is empty in front of you like a field after rain, soft soil ready for a single seed. The single most decisive act you can take in those 90 days is to define one clear life goal. Not a fuzzy wish, not a laundry list, but a precise northern star that pulls decisions into line, simplifies choices, and transforms small daily actions into a trajectory that actually changes things. Clarity is a must. The clearer the goal, the less energy wasted, the fewer temptations succeed, the faster the world answers back. Start with one sentence. Write it down by hand. Feel the pen press into paper. Hear the tiny scratch. The sentence must be simple, present tense, concrete, and measurable. Avoid vague promises like be better or get fit. Replace them with lose 12 kilograms in 90 days, or finish the first draft of a 50,000-word book, or secure 3 new clients who pay $1,000 each. One sentence reduces internal arguing. It strips the goal to its visible core. If the goal cannot be rehearsed in a single sentence that feels heavy and specific when you say it aloud, it is not ready. Next, clarify the why with a short paragraph. The why anchors the goal in deeper meaning. Otherwise, effort will dry out and evaporate when obstacles appear. Ask, what will this new reality allow? How will it change the texture of daily life? What relationships improve? What internal narrative shifts? Answer honestly. If the why is shallow, prestige, social approval, or an abstract someday, refine it until it touches something real. Mornings where energy is steady, a child who sees a parent who follows through, peace when the month's bills are covered. When the why is vivid, it becomes a fuel that outlives motivation. Break the goal into 3 measures. Stoic clarity includes measurement. Choose 1 leading metric that tracks the behavior you control, and 2 outcome or lagging metrics that show the result. For example, if the goal is to finish a book draft, the leading metric might be write 1,000 words per day. Outcome metric 1 is complete 50,000 words, and outcome metric 2 is submit to 2 beta readers by day. The leading metric is the smallest unit you control. Obsess over it. Success compounds from reliable repetition of the things you can control, not from hoping the environment changes. Create a simple daily ritual that connects you to this goal. Rituals are the bridge between intention and habit. Choose a specific time, a fixed physical cue, and a micro-action that requires almost no internal energy. For writing, the ritual might be wake, drink a glass of water, sit at the desk, open the document, write for 25 minutes. For fitness, put on shoes, step outside, walk 10 minutes at a brisk pace. The ritual must be repeatable even when you are tired or discouraged. Over time, the ritual triggers action automatically because the context becomes stronger than the wavering will. Design the environment to make the right choice obvious and the wrong choice difficult. This is not grand engineering. It is small, ruthless edits. If distractions derail focus, remove the phone from the room during your deep work block. If unhealthy food sabotages a diet, do not buy it. If a messy desk kills momentum, clear a 2-foot working space so your eyes do not wander. The Stoic practice of discipline begins by shaping the world so that discipline is simpler. Use visual reminders, a sticky note on the mirror with your 1-sentence goal, a calendar filled with the blocks you intend to keep. The fewer decisions you need to make in the moment, the less chance of self-betrayal. Set up 2 accountability structures. First, an external witness, a person or group who will receive weekly updates. The shame of inconsistency is a powerful ally when used wisely. Telling someone else creates a visible thread you will not want to sever. Second, a public but low-stakes commitment, a social post, an email to a list, a message to a small community. Public commitment multiplies the cost of giving up. Choose accountability partners who will ask direct questions and expect numbers, not soft praise. A simple weekly report with 3 lines. Progress, obstacle, next action is more useful than long explanations. Plan for obstacles with stoic anticipation. Premeditation malorum is the ancient practice of imagining the ways things might go wrong so the mind is not surprised and thrown off course. List the top 5 obstacles you expect: illness, travel, family emergencies, boredom, social invitations. For each obstacle, write a 1-line plan. If travel interrupts the daily routine, what is the minimal version of the ritual that still moves the needle? If tiredness knocks you down, what micro-action can you do? Designing if-then rules reduces friction when trouble arrives. When life throws a storm, the pre-decided course keeps the ship steady. Create a small no list, actions and decisions that are explicitly off-limits for 90 days. These are not merely distractions, they are the hollow victories that consume time and attention. The no list might include no new hobby projects until the goal completes, no late-night scrolling before deep work blocks, no starting other big goals. Having a clearly stated prohibition is liberating because it frees energy that would otherwise be spent negotiating the next shiny thing. Make tracking ritualistic and simple. At the end of each day, mark progress in the same place. Use a single line in a notebook or a simple digital tracker. Record the leading metric and one short note. What went well, what was hard. 2 minutes max. This nightly micro-review closes the loop and builds a chain of accountability to yourself. The physical act of marking progress, a cross, a green check, is a tiny sensory reward that reinforces the habit loop. Over 60 to 90 days, the chain becomes visible and tangible. Anchor progress by celebrating competence, not raw outcomes. Small wins matter because they build the neural pathways of competence. When a week of consistent action passes, acknowledge it with a small, non-derailing reward: a walk in a favorite place, half an hour with a book, a quiet cup of tea without screens. Rewards are not bribes for childishness. They are signals to the nervous system that effort leads to pleasant consequences, making the next repetition easier. Practice radical curiosity toward failure. When things do not go as planned, avoid moralizing. Stoic clarity says, observe, name, correct. Ask, what specifically prevented the action? Was the environment misdesigned? Was the metric unrealistic? Was there a hidden belief undermining action? Replace judgment with inquiry. Then test a small change. Treat the 90 days like an experiment. Hypothesize, act, measure, iterate. This approach keeps momentum because adjustments are fast and inexpensive. Use language that binds you to the process. Replace "I will try" with "I commit." Replace "I hope" with "I will." Words are not magic, but they shape identity. The phrase "I am the person who" is more powerful than "I want to be." For example, "I am the person who writes 1,000 words each morning" begins to rewire decision-making because the identity supports the action rather than the action fighting the identity. Create a visual timeline on a single page. Day 1 at the left, day 90 at the right. Mark major milestones, day 30, day 60, final deliverable, and the leading metrics that must be hit at each point. Keeping everything on one page forces compression and clarity. At a glance, you can see slippage and correct quickly. Small course corrections early prevent large detours later. Finally, commit to a specific end of 90-day test. A test is a measurable demonstration that reality has shifted. It might be sending the finished manuscript to an editor, stepping on stage to give a short talk, presenting 3 new client proposals, hitting a target weight. The test must be public, observable, and objective. Tests convert abstract progress into concrete reality and make change undeniable. The muscle of defining one clear life goal is not merely intellectual. It is emotional, sensory, and tactical. It requires a hand pressing a pen to paper, the smell of coffee in the morning, the rigid sound of a calendar block filling up. It requires confronting fear, the fear that choosing is also losing possibilities, and accepting that focused loss is the price of meaningful gain. The Stoic voice in the chest says, Control what is yours to control. Accept the rest. Act with discipline. And let consequence follow. Do the first 3 actions now. Write the 1-sentence goal. List the why in 1 paragraph. And choose the leading metric. Do not delay these simple acts, because clarity is a form of immediate leverage. Those 3 moves are a single seed and a single compass. From them, build rituals, design the environment, and prepare for obstacles. Each morning for the next 90 days, return to those few words and ask whether the day's choices drew you closer. The 90 days will not be an absence of difficulty, but they will be a controlled trial of what a life with less noise and more chosen effort looks like. When the final day arrives, there will be one of 2 outcomes: the visible fruit of steady, disciplined action, or the clear lessons of what to adjust next. Both are victory if approached with curiosity and honesty. The important thing is that a person who defines one clear life goal stops being scattered and starts becoming a cause. This transformation is not mystical. It is simple and brutal. Choose, commit. The small acts will accumulate. The field will green. And the life that felt like a dream will become an address you can walk to. Number 2, eliminate distractions for 90 days. Distractions are the silent thieves of progress, creeping into every corner of life, masquerading as harmless breaks or tiny indulgences. 90 days without them is not a punishment. It is an experiment in clarity, a way to reclaim energy and focus that normally leaks away in tiny, unnoticed increments. The human mind is not built to juggle infinite inputs. Each interruption, each flicker of novelty, chips away at momentum. To change everything in 90 days, a disciplined elimination of these distractions is the only way to preserve mental bandwidth and maintain direction. Begin by mapping the landscape of your daily attention. Every morning, spend 10 minutes writing down every activity that pulls you away from meaningful work: social media scrolling, email checking, idle browsing, unnecessary notifications, chit-chat that lingers too long, even overthinking about things that cannot be controlled. Do not judge or rationalize. Simply note what steals time. Seeing it all on paper reveals the cumulative effect. Distractions appear less innocent when quantified. When you see that 2 hours of casual browsing exist in a single day, it becomes obvious that the energy is better spent on actions aligned with your 90-day goal. After cataloging distractions, identify the highest cost offenders. These are not necessarily the activities that take the most time, but the ones that break deep focus. A 30-minute social media scroll might destroy 2 hours of creative thinking that cannot be recovered. A phone buzzing with notifications interrupts a mental flow that could have generated your most valuable work. Recognize the patterns. Most distractions exploit context triggers. Waiting in line, checking a phone out of habit, responding immediately to every ping. These triggers are keys. Remove them, and the distraction loses its power. Design an environment that prioritizes intention over reaction. Physical spaces are deeply connected to mental states. If a messy desk tempts wandering attention, clear it ruthlessly. If devices demand constant vigilance, separate them from work areas. This is not about perfection. It is about intentionality. A room where work happens only when work is intended creates a conditioned mental response. The brain associates this environment with focus, not casual catchment. Even small changes like positioning a notebook or putting a single meaningful object in sight can orient attention toward the work that matters. Apply temporal boundaries with radical precision. Distractions thrive when there are no clear limits. Decide blocks of time during the day that are completely free of interruptions. Inform colleagues, friends, or family in advance, and enforce these boundaries firmly. During these windows, no email, no casual chats, no aimless browsing. Protect these periods as fiercely as a vital appointment. When the mind is left to focus without interruption, it can enter the state of deep work, where the most meaningful progress occurs. The first hours of such a session often feel slow, but the clarity that emerges compounds over the day. Technology is both a tool and a trap. Notifications are the most insidious form of distraction because they exploit the brain's craving for novelty and immediate reward. Silence all alerts. Use apps only as instruments, not as constant companions. Schedule email checks at fixed times. Leave phones in another room and minimize open browser tabs to only those relevant to your task. The fewer the options for diversion, the stronger your attention becomes. Discipline in the digital realm is identical to physical discipline. If the environment does not nudge you toward distraction, resistance becomes easier. Establish a simple triage system for external inputs. Not every message, request, or task requires immediate attention. Decide rules for filtering incoming information. If it is not urgent or does not directly contribute to your 90-day objective, it waits. This creates mental space where energy is no longer depleted by reactive behavior. Instead of fragmenting your day with constant responding, you reclaim ownership of your time. A single decisive act of ignoring irrelevant noise can free hours of productive, unbroken focus. Identify internal distractions, the thoughts that pull attention away even when the external world is quiet. Worries, self-doubt, planning everything at once, and mindless daydreaming can erode productivity. Stoicism teaches that the mind should not be a servant to random impulses. Use journaling or voice notes to capture these thoughts. A 5-minute capture session allows them to exist without dominating your immediate focus. When the mind is cleared of unresolved noise, energy flows toward deliberate action. 90 days of disciplined focus requires managing both the external world and the inner dialogue. Create rituals that anchor attention. Every time work begins, perform a small, consistent action that signals to the mind, distraction ends, focus begins. This could be making a cup of tea, closing the door, or setting a timer for the first uninterrupted work session. These anchors train the brain to recognize transition points, making entry into deep focus faster and more natural. Over time, the ritual becomes a trigger. The body and mind understand that during this period, nothing else has priority. Prepare for unavoidable interruptions in advance. Life is rarely perfectly compliant. Pre-decide a micro-strategy. Brief pause, note the distraction, and return immediately to task. Avoid spiraling into reactive behavior. When distractions inevitably occur, the return to focus is immediate, almost automatic, because the path back has been rehearsed. This is a critical distinction. Eliminating distractions does not mean creating a sterile environment. It means controlling the response to inevitable disturbances. Track the cost of distractions in tangible terms. Each evening, record what interrupted your focus and estimate the lost productive time. Seeing a numerical representation of wasted energy is illuminating. When framed in hours, days, or potential milestones missed, the cost becomes impossible to ignore. This exercise converts abstract annoyance into measurable consequence, strengthening the resolve to maintain a distraction-free zone. Quantifying distraction fosters accountability to oneself and makes the benefits of focus tangible. Implement micro-rewards for sustained attention. After a successful block of work without interruption, acknowledge it with a brief but meaningful pause, a short walk, a favorite song, a brief conversation, a stretch. The reward is not indulgence in distraction, but a conscious recognition of effort maintained. This reinforces the habit loop of sustained focus. Attention is its own skill, and skill deserves acknowledgement. These small positive reinforcements train the mind to find satisfaction in the act of undisturbed work itself. Build momentum by stacking focused actions. Completing one uninterrupted task often primes the mind for the next. Plan the 90 days in sequences of high-priority actions that, once started, cascade into a rhythm. Avoid juggling multiple complex tasks simultaneously. Sequential focus creates psychological momentum. Each success builds confidence and reduces resistance to subsequent efforts. Over time, a pattern emerges where distractions lose their appeal because sustained engagement becomes more gratifying than novelty. Examine social dynamics and set boundaries. Some distractions are relational, habitual calls, social obligations, or group chats that demand attention. Set clear expectations with others. Let them know the purpose of your 90-day focus. Most people respect direct communication when coupled with consistent action. This frees the mind from unnecessary guilt or obligation, and the energy that would be spent reacting socially can flow toward goals that matter. Boundaries are an act of care for both yourself and others. Finally, reflect on the sensory and emotional impact of distraction elimination. Notice the heightened clarity, the sharper perception, and the deeper satisfaction of accomplishing meaningful work without interruption. Attention is a finite resource when preserved and directed. It transforms not just output, but perception of life itself. Every 90-day block of focused effort compounds, creating patterns that rewire habits, strengthen discipline, and permanently raise the baseline of productivity and personal satisfaction. Living 90 days without distractions is not about restriction. It is about reclaiming agency. Each choice to resist, each removal of temptation, each pre-planned response is a declaration of sovereignty over one's own mind. The transformation is profound, clarity deepens, energy multiplies, and the path toward the life you imagine becomes visible and navigable. At the end of 90 days, distraction no longer holds dominion over the mind, and a new standard of focus, intentionality, and accomplishment emerges. This is the power of deliberate elimination, the foundation upon which everything else can be built. Number 3. Build daily non-negotiable routines now. Habits shape the architecture of a life more than talent, motivation, or circumstance ever could. The difference between a life that drifts and a life that transforms is the consistency of small, deliberate actions performed daily. Daily non-negotiable routines are the foundation of achievement. They create a predictable rhythm where progress is not left to whim, fatigue, or fleeting enthusiasm. 90 days is enough time to install a structure so firm that it begins to dictate your choices automatically, steering every moment toward meaningful outcomes. Building routines is not about restriction. It is about creating a framework that liberates energy, removes uncertainty, and converts intention into tangible results. Begin with identification of the few actions that will produce the most impact toward your 90-day goal. Not every task deserves inclusion. The non-negotiable must be essential. The actions that, if skipped, will set back the trajectory toward transformation. A non-negotiable is not merely recommended, it is mandatory. If the goal is health, a non-negotiable might be 30 minutes of movement at a specific time every day. If the goal is skill development, it could be practicing a core technique or studying for a set period. The crucial element is the guarantee. These actions will happen every single day, without exception. Next, anchor routines to fixed points in the day. Human attention thrives on predictability. When an action is linked to a specific time or cue, it requires less decision-making energy. Morning is ideal for high-priority cognitive work because energy is highest after sleep. Evening is useful for reflection or light preparation for the next day. The anchor can be as simple as after brushing teeth, I write 500 words, or after breakfast I perform a 20-minute workout. The cue should be unmistakable, consistent, and unchanging. Over time, the routine becomes automatic because the brain associates the context with action. Start small, but scale strategically. Attempting to overhaul multiple habits at once is a trap for failure. Pick 1 or 2 non-negotiables that directly move the needle toward the goal and build them into the day first. Success compounds. Once a routine is solid, layer additional routines gradually. This approach prevents overwhelm and avoids the erosion of willpower through overextension. The strategy is deliberate. Solidify a core habit, then expand. 90 days provides sufficient time to establish multiple routines, but only if each begins with a manageable commitment. Design the environment to support automaticity. The physical surroundings are silent partners in habit formation. A desk cleared of clutter, a journal within arm's reach, or a workout space prepped with equipment signals readiness. Small changes, like putting running shoes beside the bed or preloading a meditation app, eliminate friction. If the environment facilitates the routine, the mind expends less energy overcoming obstacles, and the non-negotiable becomes more inviolable. Every environmental adjustment reduces the chance that decision fatigue derails progress. Track every repetition. Accountability is not external alone. It is also internal. Maintain a simple log where the completion of each routine is marked visually, a check, a cross, or a dot. Each mark serves as both a reward and a record, reinforcing the behavior neurologically and psychologically. Over the course of 90 days, the accumulated visual evidence of consistency becomes a source of motivation in itself. Momentum builds not from single successes, but from the unbroken chain of repeated actions. Anchor routines and identity. The most resilient habits are those that align with who you see yourself becoming. Instead of saying, "I want to exercise daily," say, "I am the person who moves intentionally every morning." Instead of "I should write," declare, "I write daily because this is who I am." Identity-driven routines are difficult to abandon because breaking them would contradict the self-concept. The language you use shapes not only intention but execution. Embedding the routine in identity provides internal coherence, making consistency less about willpower and more about alignment with character. Introduce deliberate preparation to reduce resistance. Even minor obstacles can dismantle routines if they are not anticipated. Prepare clothing, tools, and space in advance. Pre-decide the order of tasks. Reduce the number of micro-decisions required. The fewer the decisions, the smoother the execution. A morning routine becomes unbreakable when the coffee is ready, the workout clothes are waiting, and the workspace is prepped. Anticipation and preparation turn friction into effortless motion. Create a small but meaningful ritual to begin each routine. Ritual signals the mind to shift into focused action. It might be a few deep breaths before writing, a warm-up stretch before exercise, or a short meditation before strategic work. These rituals act as gates. Passing through them moves the brain from idle mode to intentional activity. The ritual also adds a sensory and emotional anchor to the routine, enhancing both engagement and pleasure. It is the subtle difference between performing a task and living it full. Plan for flexibility without compromise. Life is unpredictable, and absolute rigidity is neither realistic nor sustainable. If circumstances prevent the full routine, establish a micro-version that preserves the core intent. Writing 500 words might be impossible in the morning, but 100 words will maintain the chain. A reduced workout may preserve physical and psychological continuity. Flexibility without abandoning intention maintains momentum and prevents the erosion of the chain by one off day. The objective is continuity, not perfection. Review and reflect weekly. A brief evaluation of each routine identifies weak points and opportunities for optimization. Ask, is this routine still essential? Does it need adjustment? Are there bottlenecks that cause avoidance? Reflection ensures routines remain alive and adaptive, rather than rote. Without reflection, routines can become mechanical and lose their power. By making minor refinements, each repetition gains efficiency, impact, and clarity, reinforcing both discipline and purpose. Incorporate sensory cues to reinforce engagement. Habits tied to sensory input, sight, sound, or touch, are more memorable and automatic. A specific playlist for writing, a visual cue for exercise, or a distinctive pen for journaling can anchor action. The senses act as subtle reminders that bypass conscious resistance. Over time, the sensory cues alone are sufficient to trigger the behavior, turning effortful routines into near-automatic flows. Use accountability strategically. While internal tracking is vital, external accountability amplifies commitment. Share progress with a trusted individual or group at regular intervals. Communicate completion honestly and concisely. Knowing someone else is observing and expecting updates adds a layer of psychological pressure that strengthens consistency. Non-negotiable routines become nearly impervious to rationalization when external eyes reinforce internal discipline. Anchor routines and reward systems that are proportional and meaningful. Completion itself is gratifying, but small acknowledgments reinforce behavior neurologically. The reward should celebrate consistency, not distract from purpose. A brief reflection, a favorite beverage, or a short walk outside can serve as recognition. Over 90 days, these micro-rewards compound psychologically, reinforcing the satisfaction of disciplined action and creating a positive feedback loop that strengthens routine adherence. Understand that routines build momentum beyond their immediate action. The completion of a daily non-negotiable cultivates resilience, discipline, and confidence that permeate every other aspect of life. The brain, body, and emotions learn that consistency is not optional. Energy once wasted on indecision is now applied toward purpose. Over time, these routines rewire identity, creating a self that is capable, intentional, and inexorably moving toward goals. The challenge is not starting routines. It is sustaining them through fatigue, doubt, and temptation. The key is to reduce reliance on motivation and increase reliance on systems. When action is not a matter of desire but a matter of structure, execution becomes inevitable. 90 days is sufficient to create habits so embedded that even under stress or distraction, routines remain intact. This is the transformative power of non-negotiable daily action. Begin now. Select the essential actions that matter most, anchor them in time and environment, prepare meticulously, and commit to repetition without exception. Celebrate consistency, adjust strategically, and honor the process. As each day passes, the routines weave a framework of accomplishment, self-mastery, and clarity. By the end of 90 days, these non-negotiables are no longer tasks. They are the backbone of a life reshaped, a life that no longer drifts, but moves decisively toward transformation. Number 4. Track progress every single day. Tracking progress every single day is the invisible engine that drives transformation. Without it, effort becomes scattered, accomplishments feel accidental, and patterns of success remain hidden in the fog of repetition. Daily tracking is not about obsessive micromanagement. It is about clarity, awareness, and alignment between intention and action. Every day presents a choice to either advance toward the life envisioned or drift in ambiguity. By observing, recording, and analyzing small increments consistently, momentum compounds, habits solidify, and insight emerges into what truly moves the needle. 90 days of deliberate tracking reveals not only achievement but the mechanisms behind growth, creating a level of self-knowledge that is otherwise unattainable. The process begins with identifying the metrics that matter most. These are the tangible indicators directly connected to the 90-day goal. Leading indicators, the behaviors you control, are more valuable than outcomes alone, because they reveal whether the foundation of progress is strong. If the goal is weight loss, the leading indicator could be caloric intake or minutes of exercise. If the objective is mastering a skill, the hours practiced or techniques attempted become the central measure. Without clear metrics, effort is directionless. Daily tracking transforms abstract desire into concrete data. Once the metrics are defined, select a single medium for recording progress. Simplicity is essential. A notebook, a spreadsheet, or a habit tracking app serves as the canvas where consistency is made visible. The medium must be easy to access, quick to update, and impossible to ignore. The act of recording becomes a micro-ritual, a sensory confirmation that action occurred. Each mark, whether a check, a number, or a short note, creates a tangible signal of commitment. Over time, the accumulation of entries is a visual testimony to persistence. Consistency is the cornerstone. Tracking is most powerful when performed daily without gaps. Missing a day obscures patterns and erodes accountability. Each evening or first thing in the morning, review the actions, behaviors, and outcomes of the previous 24 hours. Record both successes and failures with equal honesty. Avoid judgment. The goal is observation, not shame. Honest, daily acknowledgement of what occurred allows small adjustments to be made quickly, preventing minor deviations from becoming systemic problems. Detail is critical. Include not only what was accomplished but also context and observations. Record challenges encountered, decisions made, energy levels, and emotional state. This additional layer of detail converts raw numbers into actionable insight. For example, noticing that creativity dips after late-night scrolling identifies a behavioral pattern, allowing deliberate correction. Tracking transforms experience into data and data into strategy. It is the bridge between action and understanding. Visualization amplifies the impact. Displaying progress graphically through charts, streak counters, or simple color-coded systems reinforces commitment and engages the brain in ways that plain numbers cannot. Seeing a rising curve, a streak of consecutive days, or a collection of completed tasks evokes satisfaction and strengthens motivation. Humans are wired to respond to visual evidence of accomplishment. It turns abstract effort into perceptible growth. Daily tracking should include reflection, not just record keeping. After recording metrics, pause to evaluate what went well, what obstacles appeared, and what can be improved tomorrow. Reflection transforms repetition into learning. A subtle shift occurs when tracking is combined with thoughtfulness. Each day becomes an experiment, each challenge an opportunity for insight. The practice cultivates a mindset of continuous improvement, where setbacks are seen as feedback rather than failure. Incorporate micro-adjustments based on observations. When patterns are identified, whether lapses in effort, energy fluctuations, or recurring obstacles, act immediately to correct them. The power of daily tracking lies not merely in collection but in timely response. If one notices a decline in adherence to a non-negotiable routine, adjustments can be made before momentum stalls. The combination of observation and action creates a feedback loop that accelerates progress exponentially. Accountability is enhanced through visible tracking. Sharing summarized data with a trusted mentor, partner, or accountability group magnifies commitment. External visibility creates subtle pressure that encourages honesty and persistence. Reporting to someone else transforms the act from private bookkeeping into a declaration of responsibility. This layer of accountability ensures that the daily habit of tracking is sustained and reinforces the seriousness of the 90-day transformation. Integrate sensory and emotional engagement into the practice. Use colors, symbols, or even short phrases that evoke feelings connected to progress. A green dot can represent completion, a small star for excellence, a brief note expressing pride or learning. Sensory markers transform the mechanical act of recording into a lived experience, where the mind registers progress, not only intellectually, but emotionally. This strengthens habit formation and creates a richer connection to the transformation process. Anticipate the natural resistance that arises. Tracking daily can feel tedious, especially when progress is slow or when faced with repeated setbacks. Counteract this by simplifying the process to the absolute essentials and by focusing on consistency rather than perfection. One honest entry each day is more powerful than multiple incomplete or fabricated ones. Momentum is built on the unbroken sequence of truthful observation, not on the illusion of flawless performance. Combine tracking with goal alignment. Each day's record should be reviewed in the context of the 90-day objective. Ask whether the actions recorded are moving the trajectory toward the intended outcome. If a habit or effort is producing little value, it should be adjusted or replaced. Tracking is not merely documentation, it is an instrument for course correction. When used strategically, it ensures that every day is intentionally contributing to transformation. Celebrate micro successes through the record itself. Seeing a streak of completed actions, incremental improvement in metrics, or reduced errors provides intrinsic reward. Recognition within the tracking system, no matter how small, reinforces effort and builds confidence. Over 90 days, the accumulation of these small wins compounds psychologically, creating a momentum that is almost impossible to break. Use data to challenge assumptions and biases. People often misjudge progress, believing effort is more or less effective than reality shows. Daily records provide an objective mirror. When subjective feelings conflict with observed data, the truth becomes apparent. This reality-based feedback cultivates humility, insight, and strategic thinking. Daily tracking is a practice in truth. It reveals both competence and areas requiring attention. Incorporate reflection on emotional and energy patterns. Tracking is not only about output, but also about internal experience. Noticing when energy peaks, when focus wanes, or when mood affects performance allows for intelligent scheduling of high-value work. Aligning tasks with natural rhythms amplifies efficiency and reduces friction. Over 90 days, understanding these patterns produces a self-awareness that informs long-term planning beyond the immediate goal. Finally, recognize that tracking transforms perception. What once seemed chaotic and overwhelming becomes structured and manageable. Progress, no matter how small, becomes visible. Daily records convert abstract aspiration into concrete movement, turning uncertainty into insight and confusion into clarity. This consistent awareness of action fosters discipline, confidence, and a sense of agency. By the end of 90 days, tracking every single day will have not only illuminated the path traveled, but will have shaped the traveler. Habits become visible, effort becomes strategic, and the mind grows attuned to incremental improvement. The simple, deliberate act of observing and recording each day creates a reality where transformation is no longer accidental. It becomes inevitable. Number 5. Learn aggressively from top performers. Learning aggressively from top performers is one of the fastest ways to accelerate growth. Human potential expands most quickly when knowledge, strategies, and behaviors of those who have already succeeded are studied, absorbed, and applied. Waiting to discover everything through trial and error is inefficient and unnecessary. Top performers compress years of learning, failure, and refinement into actionable insights that, when observed closely, allow others to shortcut the journey. Aggressive learning requires discipline, curiosity, and a willingness to imitate, adapt, and implement without ego or hesitation. 90 days is an ideal window to fully integrate lessons from masters, testing them immediately to see what works in your context. Begin by identifying the leaders in the field most relevant to your 90-day goal. Study not only widely recognized experts but also those whose results are consistently exceptional. Look for patterns of behavior, decision-making, and prioritization that distinguish them from the average practitioner. Examine what they do daily, how they structure their time, and how they handle setbacks. Success leaves traces, and the attentive learner reads these traces carefully. This requires observation, analysis, and a commitment to uncovering details that others often overlook. Once identified, immerse yourself in their work, read their books, watch interviews, consume articles, listen to podcasts, and analyze case studies. Avoid passive consumption. Approach learning actively. Take detailed notes, summarize strategies, and highlight actions that are replicable. Pay attention to language, mental models, and frameworks they use to think about problems. Aggressive learning is not mere admiration. It is the active translation of knowledge into potential practice. Every observation should generate a question. How can this approach be adapted to my 90-day objective? Direct observation is even more potent than media. If possible, spend time in environments where top performers operate. Attend seminars, workshops, or live demonstrations. Observe not just outcomes but processes. Notice the small habits, rituals, and decision-making patterns that underpin success. Ask questions when opportunities arise, not superficially, but with depth. Every answer contains insight into not only what works, but why it works. The nuanced behaviors of high achievers often reveal leverage points that are invisible without close scrutiny. Model behavior ruthlessly. Emulation is a critical component of aggressive learning. Replicate routines, decision frameworks, and strategies exactly, initially without modification. The human brain internalizes patterns most effectively through practice. Copying the approach of top performers allows you to bypass the trial and error phase that usually consumes time and energy. This is not blind imitation. It is structured, analytical replication followed by gradual adaptation to context and personal strengths. Extract principles, not just tactics. While specific actions are valuable, understanding underlying principles provides flexibility and resilience. Top performers succeed because their choices reflect universal truths: consistency, prioritization, discipline, and strategic thinking. By identifying these principles, it becomes possible to innovate within the framework they provide. Principles guide decisions when circumstances change, ensuring that learning is portable and durable. Implement insights immediately. Knowledge without action is wasted energy. Each observation, tactic, or principle should be applied in real time to your daily work. Aggressive learners treat every day as a laboratory. Test the strategies, measure results, and refine execution. The speed of application matters. Delay dilutes insight. Immediate implementation turns observation into embodied knowledge. Over 90 days, the accumulation of applied lessons produces transformations that reading alone cannot achieve. Seek feedback relentlessly. Top performers benefit not only from innate skill but also from a cycle of honest feedback. Incorporate external evaluation into your learning process. Identify mentors, peers, or colleagues capable of assessing your application of new strategies. Objective critique exposes blind spots and accelerates refinement. Feedback is not merely evaluative, it is directional, guiding where adjustment is necessary and what should be intensified. Break down complex strategies into digestible components. Many high achievers execute tasks that seem impossible because they have internalized complex systems. For the learner, deconstruct each behavior into smaller, manageable actions. Understand sequence, timing, and dependencies. Treat every principle as modular. Observe, isolate, practice, refine, and integrate. Aggressive learning requires translating sophisticated performance into actionable microsteps that fit within your 90-day plan. Focus on mindset as much as skill. High performers possess a cognitive framework that sustains effort under pressure, manages setbacks, and maintains consistency. Study how they think about failure, risk, and opportunity. Examine how they handle emotions and maintain focus. Mental models are the scaffolding upon which tactics operate. Without the right mindset, even correct strategies fail. Internalizing this perspective allows not only adoption of behaviors, but also the resilience to sustain them over time. Document discoveries meticulously. Maintain a dedicated journal or digital file to record every principle, habit, or insight gleaned from top performers. Include context, examples, and reflections on applicability. The act of writing consolidates learning and creates a resource to revisit when progress stalls or challenges emerge. Over 90 days, this repository grows into a personalized playbook of high-leverage strategies. Be fearless in experimentation. Not every tactic or behavior will translate perfectly into your context. The aggressive learner treats failures as rapid feedback. Experiment, observe, refine, and iterate quickly. Avoid clinging to pride. The most effective learning comes from humility and adaptability. Observe what works for you and adjust without losing sight of the underlying principles observed in top performers. Identify patterns across multiple experts. Learning from one top performer is valuable, but studying several allows identification of universal strategies. Cross-reference approaches to discover common threads in decision-making, prioritization, and execution. These shared principles are more likely to produce results than isolated tactics. Aggressive learners distill insights from multiple sources into a coherent, actionable framework. Build a system for continuous intake. Set aside daily blocks dedicated exclusively to learning from top performers. Treat these sessions as high-priority engagements, with the same focus as execution of the 90-day goal. Active absorption requires attention, note-taking, and immediate reflection. Consistent exposure reinforces both knowledge and mental models, ensuring that the learning permeates daily decisions and actions. Reflect on personal adaptation regularly. Learning aggressively is not blind copying, it is strategic adaptation. Evaluate how each tactic fits with your unique strengths, constraints, and context. Adjust duration, intensity, or sequence as needed. Over 90 days, this process shapes an individualized approach, informed by excellence, yet tailored for maximum effectiveness. Reflection ensures that learning is alive, responsive, and integrated. Leverage sensory engagement to embed knowledge. Discuss insights aloud, teach them to others, or simulate scenarios mentally. Active engagement reinforces neural pathways, making the behaviors more automatic. The combination of observation, analysis, application, and active reinforcement ensures that lessons are internalized at both cognitive and procedural levels. Aggressive learning is holistic, combining seeing, thinking, doing, and feeling. Finally, maintain relentless curiosity. Top performers are not only skilled but perpetually inquisitive. Aggressive learning requires the same mindset, a refusal to accept assumptions, a hunger to understand underlying causes, and a drive to uncover deeper truths. The learner who approaches every day with this intensity transforms exposure into mastery. 90 days becomes a period of intense, accelerated growth, producing not just competence, but profound insight into the principles and practices that underpin extraordinary performance. By studying, emulating, implementing, and refining the habits of top performers every single day, the pace of improvement accelerates exponentially. Knowledge becomes skill, skill becomes instinct, and instinct becomes results. Over 90 days, aggressive learning reshapes capability, thinking, and behavior, producing an effect that far exceeds ordinary effort applied in isolation. The cumulative impact of observation, application, and reflection produces mastery far faster than unstructured work, turning the aspirational into the achievable. Number 6. Replace bad habits with systems. Breaking free from bad habits is not enough to transform a life. True change occurs when destructive patterns are replaced with systems that automatically produce the desired behavior. Bad habits are symptoms of poorly designed routines, unmanaged triggers, or gaps in strategy. Replacing them with intentional systems shifts the burden from willpower to structure, making progress inevitable rather than fragile. 90 days is a period long enough to dismantle ingrained habits and replace them with automated patterns that consistently align with long-term objectives. The key is to approach the process with precision, insight, and discipline. Begin by identifying habits that undermine goals. Observe daily behaviors critically. Notice moments when energy is wasted, time is lost, or momentum is interrupted. These habits can be subtle: checking a phone excessively, procrastinating, impulsive snacking, or delaying important work in favor of minor tasks. Name them specifically. A habit is easier to change once it is clearly defined rather than vaguely acknowledged. Understand the triggers, rewards, and context associated with each habit, because these are the levers through which change becomes possible. Examine the underlying need that the bad habit fulfills. Every habit exists to satisfy a desire: stress relief, entertainment, social connection, or avoidance of discomfort. Identify the true purpose of the habit. Once the underlying need is recognized, it becomes possible to design a system that fulfills that need in a constructive way. Ignoring the root cause leads to temporary suppression rather than lasting transformation. Systems succeed where raw willpower fails, because they address both action and motivation simultaneously. Design replacement behaviors that satisfy the same underlying need while advancing your 90-day objective. If stress triggers mindless scrolling, replace it with a brief physical routine, journaling, or focused breathing exercises. If fatigue leads to skipping workouts, design a micro-exercise system that can be executed in 2 minutes at minimum intensity, allowing the chain to remain unbroken. The replacement must be realistic, repeatable, and immediately accessible. Complexity reduces compliance, while simplicity maximizes adoption. System design requires explicit cues and triggers. Habits often operate automatically because of environmental prompts. Alter these prompts to guide behavior toward constructive action. Move the phone out of reach to prevent scrolling, place workout clothes by the bed to encourage exercise, or schedule blocks of focused work in visible time slots. Triggers must be unmistakable and unavoidable, creating an environment where the desired behavior is the easiest choice. The system works because structure removes ambiguity, not because the individual must summon extraordinary self-control. Break habits into micro-actions that are easy to repeat. The human brain resists large, overwhelming tasks. By reducing desired behavior into the smallest functional step, momentum is maintained. Writing 1 sentence, doing 2 push-ups, or reading a single page each day initiates a chain reaction. Once started, the micro-action often expands naturally into larger efforts. Systems succeed when resistance is minimized and execution is nearly frictionless. Track system performance daily. Observation reveals whether the replacement behavior is functioning as intended. A simple log of consistency, outcomes, and obstacles allows rapid adjustment. If a system is ineffective, modify the trigger, micro-action, or reward. Repetition without evaluation produces mechanical compliance, not real change. Daily tracking ensures the system remains active, effective, and aligned with the 90-day goal. Integrate immediate feedback loops into each system. Every action should provide perceptible evidence that progress is occurring. Seeing a growing word count, a completed workout, or a finished checklist produces satisfaction and reinforces behavior. Feedback accelerates habit formation because the brain associates action with positive consequence. Systems fail when results are invisible. They succeed when each repetition confirms effectiveness. Layer systems together for compounding effect. Individual systems are valuable, but when multiple systems operate in sequence, they generate momentum that far exceeds the sum of their parts. A morning sequence of hydration, exercise, journaling, and focused work primes the body and mind for high-performance action throughout the day. Design chains of systems that feed one another, creating self-reinforcing loops of productivity, clarity, and energy. Eliminate friction for desired behaviors. If the new system is difficult to access or inconvenient, old habits will re-emerge. Make constructive actions effortless and remove obstacles. Preload materials, create dedicated spaces, and automate environmental support. Reduce the distance, time, and complexity associated with productive actions. Ease of execution transforms intention into action without relying on fluctuating motivation. Use accountability to strengthen systems. Share progress with a mentor, partner, or accountability group. External monitoring reinforces adherence because systems are more likely to succeed when commitments are visible. Weekly or daily reports create subtle psychological pressure that amplifies consistency. Accountability is not punishment. It is the scaffolding that supports persistence until the system becomes self-sustaining. Incorporate periodic review and refinement. Systems must adapt to changing circumstances and feedback. Conduct weekly or bi-weekly audits to assess effectiveness, remove inefficiencies, and optimize performance. A rigid system is brittle, but a flexible system that evolves in response to evidence grows stronger over time. Continuous refinement ensures that replacement behaviors remain aligned with goals and continue to outperform old habits. Reward the completion of systems to reinforce behavior. Recognition is a vital component of habit formation. Micro-rewards signal to the brain that the effort produces positive outcomes, strengthening neural pathways associated with the desired action. Reward can be subtle, a moment of reflection, a small pause, or acknowledgement of progress. Over time, the internalized reward becomes intrinsic satisfaction derived from the act itself. Address emotional resistance directly. Old habits often return during moments of stress, fatigue, or discomfort. Anticipate triggers and design preemptive strategies. Recognize emotional states that provoke regression and implement immediate alternatives. Systems should account for variability in energy, mood, and environment to remain reliable. Emotional resilience is built by consistent application, even when motivation wanes. Visualize success to reinforce system adherence. Mental rehearsal strengthens commitment and primes the brain for execution. Picture completing the replacement behavior under challenging circumstances, maintaining focus, and achieving measurable outcomes. Visualization connects intention to action, enhancing both consistency and confidence. Over 90 days, repeated visualization reinforces neurological pathways that support new habits. Anchor new behaviors to identity. The most enduring systems are those integrated into the self-concept. Instead of thinking, "I try to exercise," adopt, "I am the person who moves intentionally every morning." Identity alignment ensures consistency because the behavior becomes a reflection of who you are, rather than a task imposed externally. Systems supported by identity are self-reinforcing and resistant to regression. Accept imperfection while maintaining continuity. Occasional lapses are inevitable, but the focus remains on maintaining the chain of behavior rather than achieving perfection. Minor deviations are opportunities to learn and adjust systems, not evidence of failure. Continuity over 90 days is the primary objective. The accumulation of consistent imperfect actions surpasses sporadic perfection. Finally, embrace systems as a lifestyle rather than a temporary fix. The purpose of replacing bad habits with structured processes is not merely to survive 90 days. It is to install durable patterns that extend beyond. Once systems are operational, behaviors continue with minimal conscious effort, freeing mental energy for higher-order decision-making, creativity, and growth. Transformation becomes automatic when the framework is embedded, replacing reactive behavior with intentional action. Over 90 days, systematically replacing destructive habits with structured systems produces compounding impact. Energy is preserved, decisions are simplified, and outcomes become predictable. Life shifts from being reactive and chaotic to deliberate and efficient. The daily application of these principles reshapes character, performance, and potential. By designing, implementing, and refining systems, the individual creates a reliable engine of progress that eliminates the destructive patterns of the past and replaces them with consistent, measurable, and sustainable action. Number 7. Execute before motivation appears consistent. Action precedes motivation. Waiting for inspiration to strike is a trap that leaves potential untapped and goals deferred indefinitely. Motivation is unreliable, fluctuating with mood, energy, and circumstance. High performers understand this truth. Success is built on execution, not desire. Consistently acting before motivation arrives creates momentum, disciplines the mind, and transforms intention into tangible results. 90 days offers a window to internalize this principle, training the body and mind to move first and rely on feeling second. Mastery over execution is mastery over life itself. Begin by creating a fixed schedule for key actions, anchored to time rather than emotion. When an activity is tied to a specific hour, execution becomes a matter of habit, not desire. The brain begins to anticipate action automatically. For example, writing at 6 a.m. or exercising immediately after waking removes the need for motivational negotiation. These anchor points serve as non-negotiable commitments, ensuring that critical work occurs regardless of internal inclination. Develop a ritual that signals the start of action. Small, repeatable preparatory steps act as a cue for focus and effort. This could be making a cup of tea, clearing a workspace, or putting on specific attire for exercise. Rituals reduce friction and provide sensory confirmation that the body is moving into performance mode. By associating consistent pre-action cues with work, the mind learns to respond automatically, bypassing the need for willpower or transient motivation. Commit to micro steps as a bridge to full execution. When motivation is low, the smallest possible action is enough to initiate progress. A single paragraph written, a 2-minute stretch, or reviewing one task on a list is sufficient to trigger momentum. Often, once the first micro step is taken, energy and engagement follow. Starting becomes the catalyst. Action generates internal drive rather than waiting for it to appear external. Prioritize actions based on impact and immediacy. High-leverage tasks should be executed first, even in low motivation states. This ensures that effort is spent on outcomes that matter most, rather than low-value or trivial activities. Completing a significant task early in the day, before energy dissipates, creates a psychological and practical advantage that compounds throughout the day. Remove environmental friction that allows procrastination. Prepare tools, workspaces, and resources in advance. Ensure that all obstacles to immediate execution are minimized. Delays and excuses thrive when the path is cluttered or ambiguous. By simplifying the conditions for action, the first step becomes almost unavoidable. Every eliminated friction point strengthens the habit of acting independently of motivation. Adopt a mental stance of obligation rather than inspiration. Reframe tasks as responsibilities that must be performed, not optional acts requiring desire. This shifts focus from emotion-driven decision-making to principle-driven behavior. Motivation becomes secondary, and the act itself is sufficient to sustain discipline. Over time, this mindset eliminates reliance on external or internal emotional states as justification for action. Track completion to reinforce consistency. Daily recording of actions taken, even when effort feels minimal, solidifies patterns of execution. Observing a streak of completed tasks fosters accountability, pride, and resilience. When momentum is visible, continuation is easier, and lapses are less likely to occur. Metrics serve as both guide and reinforcement, encouraging adherence to principle over feeling. Predecide responses to resistance. Anticipate moments when energy dips, distraction arises, or doubt threatens. Establish concrete rules. If a block of work is scheduled, action occurs regardless of internal state. Structured responses remove negotiation and rationalization. This preemptive strategy ensures that challenges do not disrupt execution, maintaining rhythm and reliability over 90 days. Leverage the power of immediate initiation. Begin each task without contemplation. The mind often overestimates difficulty or underestimates capability. Acting immediately bypasses hesitation and mental chatter. Each initiation, however small, produces momentum and reinforces the neural pathways that associate starting with automatic progression. Repetition strengthens these pathways, reducing resistance in the future. Use time-bound constraints to enforce action. Deadlines, even self-imposed, create urgency that bypasses reliance on motivation. A 30-minute writing sprint or a 20-minute workout window generates focus through constraint. Limiting time encourages decisive execution and discourages procrastination. These small deadlines replicate the pressure of necessity, training the mind to operate efficiently without waiting for internal drive. Focus on process over emotion. Detach from how performing a task feels and concentrate on completion itself. Execution is a practice in discipline, not pleasure. Pleasure and satisfaction follow from the act, not before. By consistently prioritizing process, a pattern emerges where action becomes habitual, independent of mood, willpower, or inspiration. 90 days of process-focused work establishes resilience and self-reliance. Introduce accountability to strengthen execution. Share planned actions with a partner, mentor, or group who will check for completion. Publicizing intent increases follow-through because inconsistency is visible. Accountability transforms abstract commitment into concrete obligation, reinforcing behavior when internal motivation falters. The social layer amplifies personal discipline, ensuring execution becomes a default rather than an option. Celebrate initiation itself. Reward the act of starting regardless of outcome. Recognize the courage and discipline required to act before motivation appears. This positive reinforcement conditions the brain to associate initiation with satisfaction, further reducing dependency on emotional states. Over time, starting becomes inherently rewarding, fueling ongoing execution. Practice reflection to refine methods. Each evening, review completed actions and identify moments when initiation required extra effort. Analyze conditions, cues, and micro-strategies that facilitated starting. Incremental improvements in process design increase efficiency and reduce friction, making execution smoother and more automatic. Reflection transforms trial and error into deliberate optimization. Visualize completion before starting. Mentally rehearsing the act, imagining steps, and anticipating obstacles primes the brain for execution. Visualization strengthens neural pathways associated with movement and focus, making the physical act easier. When combined with immediate initiation, visualization serves as a preemptive alignment between intention and performance. Accept discomfort as part of the process. Starting without motivation often feels awkward, resistant, or unpleasant. Embrace this discomfort as a signal of growth rather than a barrier. The ability to act in spite of feeling is a hallmark of high performance. 90 days of consistently executing through discomfort rewires perception, making effort feel natural and expected. Layer initiation strategies together for resilience. Combine rituals, micro-steps, time constraints, and accountability to create multiple pathways to execution. The system becomes robust. If one lever falters, others compensate. Redundancy ensures that action occurs consistently regardless of internal state, weathering fluctuations in energy, mood, or external events. Observe compounding momentum. Each day of executing before motivation generates cumulative effects. Small actions accumulate into tangible outcomes. Neural patterns strengthen, habits embed, and confidence grows. Momentum becomes self-reinforcing, eventually reducing the perceived need for external inspiration. Action creates its own drive. Commit to 90 days of unwavering practice. Initial days are the most challenging, as reliance on motivation is broken and new pathways are established. Persistence builds automaticity. By the end of the period, starting has become instinctual, independent of desire. The brain recognizes action as the norm, and execution occurs naturally, consistently, and reliably. Through relentless practice of acting before motivation appears, the 90-day period transforms not only output but identity. A person who executes first, regardless of feeling, cultivates discipline, resilience, and mastery over circumstance. Habits of initiation compound, producing results far beyond what reliance on fluctuating motivation could achieve. Execution becomes the engine of progress, turning intention into reality and creating a life governed by deliberate action rather than waiting for fleeting inspiration. Number 8. Review failures. Adjust strategies weekly. Failure is not an endpoint. It is a signal, a data point, and a guidepost. Success rarely occurs in a straight line. Every attempt, regardless of outcome, carries valuable information that, when analyzed correctly, becomes the foundation for improvement. Weekly review of failures is not indulgence in regret. It is a disciplined practice of learning, adjustment, and course correction. 90 days of consistent weekly evaluation creates a rhythm of growth that transforms errors into stepping stones, weaknesses into opportunities, and setbacks into actionable insight. Begin by reframing the perception of failure. Failure is not a reflection of character or ability. It is a symptom of a strategy that requires adjustment. This mindset shifts focus from shame to analysis. Instead of asking why something went wrong in terms of personal worth, ask what specific factors contributed to the undesired outcome. Dissect each failure objectively, separating circumstance from controllable action, emotion from decision-making, and pattern from anomaly. Establish a weekly review ritual. Dedicate a fixed time to examine the past 7 days. During this period, catalog instances where goals were missed, routines were broken, or results fell short of expectation. Be thorough and precise. Note not only what failed, but the conditions, triggers, and decisions that led to it. The act of documentation creates clarity and ensures that insights are not lost in memory or emotion. Analyze patterns rather than isolated incidents. One failure alone might be random, but repeated occurrences reveal systemic issues. Identify recurring obstacles, ineffective approaches, or repeated misjudgments. The patterns indicate weaknesses in strategy, gaps in preparation, or environmental factors that require intervention. Recognizing patterns transforms scattered failures into coherent lessons that guide deliberate adjustment. Distinguish between controllable and uncontrollable factors. Not every failure is within your influence. Focus on aspects that can be improved through action. External circumstances may shift, but personal decisions, preparation, timing, and effort are always within your control. Targeting adjustment where it has effect ensures that strategies evolve efficiently and do not waste energy on factors that cannot be influenced. Extract specific, actionable lessons from each failure. Avoid vague conclusions. Instead of thinking, "I need to do better," identify precise changes, modifying a schedule, reallocating energy, refining technique, or improving communication. Actionable insights are the bridge between failure and progress. Every failure should end with a defined next step that is measurable and testable. Adjust strategies iteratively rather than radically. Weekly evaluation allows for small, deliberate modifications that preserve momentum while correcting course. Drastic changes can disrupt rhythm and introduce new sources of error. Incremental improvement ensures stability, reinforces existing strengths, and systematically eliminates weaknesses. Over 90 days, iterative adjustments compound, producing profound transformation without sacrificing consistency. Maintain a record of lessons learned. Create a dedicated log that captures failures, insights, and adjustments. Review this document regularly to ensure that past lessons are not forgotten. This archive serves as a personal knowledge base, allowing avoidance of repeated mistakes and providing historical perspective on growth. A visual record of progression reinforces both learning and confidence. Incorporate reflective questions into the review. Ask, what triggered this failure? Could it have been prevented through preparation? What adjustment would most improve outcomes next week? Which habits or behaviors contributed positively, even amid setbacks. Structured reflection ensures that analysis is systematic rather than random, producing reliable guidance for future decisions. Focus on emotional regulation during review. Failures can evoke frustration, guilt, or disappointment. Observe these emotions without letting them dominate the process. Emotional clarity allows objective assessment and prevents bias in judgment. Accept discomfort as part of learning. It signals engagement and provides motivational energy to implement adjustments. Stoic discipline and emotional response strengthens the mind's ability to convert adversity into actionable knowledge. Identify high-leverage adjustments. Not all corrections yield equal results. Determine which changes will produce the most significant impact on outcomes. Target adjustments that affect multiple aspects of performance or prevent recurring errors. Prioritizing high-leverage interventions accelerates progress and ensures that energy is directed toward improvements that matter most. Link adjustments to measurable outcomes. Each strategy change should have a defined method of evaluation. Establish clear indicators that reveal whether the adjustment is effective in the following week. Measurement transforms subjective judgment into objective feedback, allowing precise calibration of actions. Without metrics, adjustment becomes guesswork rather than deliberate optimization. Develop contingency frameworks for recurring failures. Some obstacles cannot be fully eliminated. Create fallback strategies, alternative routines, or pre-planned responses to common pitfalls. This ensures that progress continues even when setbacks occur. Systems that anticipate failure minimize its disruptive effect and maintain forward momentum. Combine review with accountability. Share insights and intended adjustments with a mentor, peer, or accountability partner. External discussion adds perspective, challenges assumptions, and reinforces commitment to implementing changes. Accountability ensures that lessons are not merely intellectual exercises, but are translated into practical action. Integrate successes alongside failures. While the focus is on learning from what went wrong, observing what worked is equally important. Identify strengths and repeatable behaviors that produced positive outcomes. Amplify these patterns while addressing weaknesses. Balanced evaluation ensures that adjustment does not undermine effective strategies, reinforcing both consistency and improvement. Visualize application of adjustments before execution. Mentally rehearse changes in approach, anticipate potential challenges, and envision successful implementation. Visualization primes action, reduces hesitation, and strengthens confidence. Combined with reflection, this practice ensures that adjustments are both deliberate and executable, bridging the gap between insight and action. Embed learning into daily routines. Insights from weekly reviews should inform everyday practices, shaping decisions, habits, and responses. Daily integration transforms abstract lessons into embodied behavior, ensuring that reflection produces tangible progress rather than remaining theoretical. Over 90 days, this continuous cycle embeds adaptive intelligence into every action. Anticipate iterative failure as part of growth. Adjustments themselves may not succeed immediately. Recognize that experimentation is essential and that repeated failure is informative rather than punitive. Maintain a mindset that treats each misstep as data, not defeat. Persistence coupled with intelligent adjustment transforms obstacles into cumulative progress. Reflect on broader implications beyond immediate goals. Consider how recurring failures reveal character tendencies, cognitive biases, or environmental weaknesses. Weekly review not only refines strategy but deepens self-awareness, revealing patterns of thought, decision-making, and resilience that influence long-term success. Understanding these deeper layers strengthens both execution and personal development. Commit to a disciplined, 90-day cadence of review. Consistency is crucial. Skipping or delaying reflection diminishes learning, allows patterns to go unrecognized, and reduces the effectiveness of adjustments. The habit of weekly evaluation enforces structure, promotes accountability, and cultivates a mindset of continuous refinement. Over time, reviewing failures and adjusting strategies weekly transforms perspective. Setbacks are no longer sources of fear or frustration, but valuable signals that guide growth. Each cycle strengthens resilience, sharpens decision-making, and improves the alignment of action with goals. By the end of 90 days, the practice creates a self-sustaining loop of observation, learning, and adjustment, producing progress that is deliberate, measurable, and compounded by consistent reflection. Number 9. Upgrade mindset through deliberate practice. The mind is the most powerful tool a person possesses, yet it is also the most malleable. Mindset is not an inherited trait or a static personality feature. It is a skill that can be deliberately honed, strengthened, and optimized. The quality of one's thoughts, beliefs, and internal dialogue shapes perception, behavior, and ultimately outcomes. Upgrading mindset through deliberate practice is the process of systematically reshaping mental patterns, building milieu, sharpening focus, and cultivating clarity of purpose. 90 days of consistent, intentional practice is sufficient to transform how the mind interprets challenges, processes opportunities, and responds to setbacks, producing a durable and high-performing cognitive framework. Begin by observing current thought patterns with ruthless honesty. Awareness is the prerequisite for transformation. Track recurring self-talk, internal narratives, and default responses to stress or difficulty. Notice patterns of doubt, hesitation, or negativity, as well as moments of confidence, curiosity, or clarity. Observation requires detachment, recording reality without judgment. By understanding the baseline of your mental state, you identify the areas requiring conscious intervention. Define the mindset you want to cultivate. A high-performing mindset is typically characterized by clarity, resilience, focus, and adaptability. It views obstacles as opportunities, emphasizes learning over comfort, and aligns action with principle rather than transient emotion. Establish clear, concrete definitions for the qualities you wish to embody. The specificity of this mental target provides direction for deliberate practice and allows measurable progress to emerge over time. Introduce daily micro-practices designed to strengthen mental patterns. Deliberate practice of mindset requires repetition in conditions of challenge. Techniques such as focused journaling, visualization, meditation, and self-inquiry prime the brain to operate consistently within the desired framework. Each practice reinforces neural pathways, gradually converting intentional effort into automatic response. The aim is to condition the mind to respond adaptively to stress, complexity, and opportunity. Challenge limiting beliefs actively. Identify thoughts that restrict potential, generate fear, or produce hesitation. Confront these beliefs directly by questioning their validity, analyzing their origin, and replacing them with rational, growth-oriented alternatives. Repeated exposure to counter-evidence and deliberate reframing strengthens cognitive flexibility. Over time, the mind stops defaulting to restriction and begins operating from a foundation of capability and possibility. Use visualization to rehearse adaptive mental responses. Picture encountering obstacles, high-pressure situations, or difficult decisions, and imagine responding with calm, clarity, and strategic thinking. Mental rehearsal strengthens neural circuits associated with desirable thought patterns, making real-world execution smoother and more automatic. Visualization trains the mind to anticipate and handle challenges effectively, creating confidence and reducing hesitation in actual circumstances. Anchor mindset upgrades in routines and rituals. Mental conditioning is most effective when embedded in daily structure. Begin the day with a focused practice of reflection, affirmation. End the day with deliberate evaluation of cognitive performance. What thoughts facilitated progress, what patterns impeded action, and how adjustments can improve response in the future. These rituals turn abstract aspirations into consistent mental training, reinforcing upgraded cognitive frameworks. Practice emotional regulation deliberately. Mindset is inseparable from emotional resilience. Train the mind to observe emotional responses without being dominated by them. Techniques such as deep breathing, pausing before reaction, and labeling emotions create separation between stimulus and response. Over time, this builds stability, allowing rational, principle-based decision-making even under pressure. Resilience emerges not by eliminating emotion but by mastering its influence on action. Incorporate reflective journaling as a core tool. Daily written reflection organizes thoughts, clarifies patterns, and provides tangible evidence of cognitive growth. Focus on dissecting responses to challenges, evaluating adherence to desired principles, and planning deliberate adjustments. Writing consolidates neural pathways, turning reflection into a form of active practice that strengthens both insight and strategic thinking. Seek feedback to accelerate mental refinement. Share thought processes, decisions, and interpretations with mentors, peers, or trusted observers. External perspective highlights blind spots, challenges assumptions, and reveals areas for cognitive strengthening that may be invisible in isolation. Feedback becomes a catalyst for recalibration, preventing stagnation and ensuring that deliberate practice is effective rather than rote. Engage in cognitive stretching exercises. Expose the mind to complexity, ambiguity, and challenging scenarios that push beyond comfort zones. These exercises, such as problem solving under constraints, analyzing unfamiliar perspectives, or simulating high-stakes decisions, expand mental flexibility and strategic capacity. Regular exposure to such challenges rewires thought patterns, enhancing adaptability, creativity, and resilience in real-world contexts. Leverage affirmations and internal dialogue strategically. Thought is a tool. Words shape perception. Create deliberate statements that reinforce desired beliefs, behaviors, and responses. Repeating structured affirmations primes the subconscious, embedding upgraded mental patterns. However, affirmations are effective only when paired with action and evidence. Integration with deliberate practice ensures that statements reflect lived experience rather than wishful thinking. Use failure as a cognitive sharpening mechanism. Each mistake or setback is an opportunity to examine thinking patterns, identify gaps, and refine mental strategy. Deliberate mindset practice transforms failure from discouragement into instruction. By consistently analyzing errors with objectivity and curiosity, the mind strengthens, develops nuance, and anticipates future challenges with precision. Develop focus through concentrated attention exercises. Mindset improvement relies on the ability to direct thought with intention. Practices such as single tasking, timed concentration drills, or meditative focus exercises train the brain to resist distraction and maintain clarity. Over 90 days, the capacity to sustain attention transforms productivity, decision-making, and emotional stability, creating a foundation for high-level cognitive performance. Establish mental models to guide thinking. Top performers rely on structured frameworks to process information, solve problems, and make decisions. Build personal mental models in areas such as prioritization, risk assessment, and cause and effect reasoning. Repeated application of these models turns abstract principles into automatic cognitive processes, allowing faster, more accurate interpretation of complex scenarios. Monitor self-talk meticulously. Internal language dictates behavior and emotional response. Observe recurring phrases, judgments, or assumptions. Replace self-limiting language with constructive, solution-oriented expressions. Over time, deliberate repetition rewires neural associations, creating a resilient internal narrative aligned with growth, discipline, and effectiveness. Integrate sensory reinforcement. Associating mindset upgrades with sensory cues, visual symbols, auditory triggers, or physical rituals strengthens neural embedding. For example, a visual cue on a workspace might remind the mind to remain strategic, calm, and focused. Linking cognition with sensory input accelerates learning, embeds habits, and transforms abstract principles into embodied practice. Evaluate progress weekly to ensure alignment. Track shifts in thought patterns, emotional regulation, and decision-making quality. Identify areas where mental habits remain unhelpful and design corrective micro-practices. Iterative evaluation guarantees that deliberate practice produces measurable transformation rather than superficial compliance with technique. Embrace discomfort as part of cognitive growth. Upgrading mindset involves encountering resistance, mental friction, uncertainty, and self-doubt. Deliberate practice requires sustained engagement with these conditions, recognizing that adaptation emerges from repeated exposure to challenge. Discomfort is a signal of progress, not a deterrent. Commit fully to 90 days of systematic practice. Consistency is the differentiator between sporadic mental shifts and true cognitive transformation. Each day contributes incrementally to a restructured mindset. Daily engagement, reflection, and application consolidate skills, producing a durable mental architecture capable of sustaining focus, resilience, and strategic decision-making. By the end of 90 days, deliberate practice and mindset reshapes not only thought patterns, but character and performance. Mental clarity, emotional stability, and adaptive thinking become ingrained. The mind no longer reacts passively to circumstance, but operates as a disciplined, agile, and deliberate instrument. Deliberate practice transforms potential into capability, challenges into opportunities, and ordinary cognition into a framework for sustained high performance, creating a foundation for both immediate success and long-term growth. Number 10. Commit fully, no backup plans. Total commitment is the ultimate differentiator between ordinary effort and extraordinary results. Half-hearted attempts, hedged bets, and backup plans dilute energy, focus, and determination. When a person enters a 90-day period with absolute resolve and no fallback, every decision, action, and thought is aligned toward the singular objective. Full commitment removes ambiguity, eliminates distraction, and forces the mind and body to operate at maximum capacity. It is the difference between merely wishing for change and producing transformation. Begin by clarifying the goal so that commitment is unequivocal. Vague intentions leave space for hesitation and retreat. Define what success looks like in concrete, measurable terms. Understand the stakes personally, professionally, and emotionally. When the outcome is clearly visualized and deeply internalized, the mind naturally prioritizes it above competing desires. Commitment is rooted in clarity, and clarity requires precision. Remove contingency thinking. Backup plans create a subconscious exit strategy that weakens resolve. Even if safety nets seem wise, they allow the mind to defer risk and dilute effort. Full commitment requires accepting that the path forward is the only path. By removing mental and emotional escape routes, a sense of urgency emerges, energizing action and sharpening focus. Hesitation is replaced by deliberate decisiveness, and inertia becomes impossible to sustain. Align daily routines to reinforce commitment. Every micro-action should serve the 90-day objective. Non-essential tasks, low-value interactions, and energy drains must be minimized or eliminated. Scheduling, environment, and rituals should converge on reinforcing focus and preventing drift. When each day is purposefully structured around the goal, commitment becomes a lived reality rather than an abstract concept. Develop a mindset that embraces risk and uncertainty. Total commitment inherently involves vulnerability. Outcomes are not guaranteed, and failure is possible. The difference lies in response. A fully committed individual views risk as part of the process rather than a threat. Embracing uncertainty eliminates hesitation and strengthens resilience, allowing action to proceed without second-guessing or diversion. Eliminate external distractions that weaken resolve. Social media, casual obligations, and low-priority tasks subtly erode attention. Full commitment requires protecting mental and emotional bandwidth. Create physical and temporal boundaries that safeguard focus. Every external element that does not directly advance the goal is either postponed, delegated, or removed. Protecting attention amplifies effort and reinforces a sense of singular purpose. Anchor commitment in identity. Shift from performing actions because of desire to operating from a self-definition that is inseparable from the goal. Instead of thinking, "I hope to succeed," internalize, "I am the person who achieves this." Identity-driven commitment bypasses fluctuating motivation. Action becomes automatic because it is an extension of self rather than a choice. Over 90 days, identity alignment produces persistent, non-negotiable behavior. Visualize consequences of partial commitment, mentally rehearsing the outcome of hedged effort, distraction, or divided focus clarifies the stakes. Visualization of failure, resulting from indecision or compromise, reinforces the necessity of total dedication. The brain responds to these simulations as though they were real, strengthening resolve and creating cognitive pressure to maintain focus and discipline. Create absolute accountability systems. External commitment magnifies internal resolve. Declare intentions to a trusted mentor, peer, or network, with consequences tied to results. Accountability ensures that commitment is reinforced by social and psychological structures, leaving less room for retreat. Daily or weekly reporting creates a persistent feedback loop that anchors effort and eliminates rationalization. Establish rituals that symbolize full commitment. Small, repeated actions, such as morning preparation, deliberate reflection, or visual cues, act as constant reminders of dedication. Rituals turn abstract intention into tangible, embodied practice. Each repetition reinforces the mental framework that there is no alternative path, embedding unwavering focus at a neurological level. Develop resilience to obstacles and setbacks. Commitment without the ability to endure difficulty is fragile. Anticipate challenges and pre-plan responses, yet accept that some adversity will be unavoidable. Full commitment means confronting obstacles head-on, using them as fuel for action rather than reasons to retreat. Each obstacle overcome strengthens resolve and reinforces the belief in the inevitability of achievement through persistent effort. Prioritize action over comfort. The path of total commitment is inherently demanding. Discomfort, fatigue, and sacrifice are constants. Choosing immediate action, even when it is inconvenient, difficult, or unpleasant, reinforces dedication. Over 90 days, these choices condition both mind and body to operate effectively under strain, eliminating procrastination and reliance on transient motivation. Maintain relentless focus on high-leverage activities. Commitment is wasted when energy is spread across trivial or non-essential tasks. Identify the actions that produce the most significant progress and allocate resources exclusively to them. Each day should include deliberate execution of these high-impact behaviors. Strategic prioritization maximizes returns and magnifies the effect of unwavering dedication. Monitor progress with discipline. Even while fully committed, feedback is essential. Track results consistently, evaluate effectiveness, and adjust tactics without compromising the singular focus. Awareness of progress reinforces commitment, while misalignment triggers rapid corrective action. The combination of steadfast dedication and intelligent adjustment creates a dynamic system that sustains growth and ensures that effort produces results. Anchor commitment in purpose and meaning. Understand not only what the goal is, but why it matters profoundly. Purpose fuels endurance when obstacles appear and sustains clarity when challenges arise. Emotional and cognitive investment in the why strengthens the psychological infrastructure that underpins full commitment. Deep purpose converts effort from mechanical action into motivated, persistent drive. Embrace the elimination of alternatives psychologically. Avoid entertaining what-ifs, detours, or secondary options. Mental bandwidth consumed by alternatives dilutes intensity. Practice focusing entirely on the primary goal as if no other outcome is possible. This discipline trains cognitive patterns to recognize only the chosen path, reinforcing clarity, decisiveness, and momentum. Commit to reflection on alignment daily. Assess whether thoughts, actions, and decisions reinforce total dedication. Identify deviations immediately and course correct without hesitation. Daily reinforcement ensures that small compromises do not accumulate into a drift from objective focus. The practice of consistent alignment maintains the integrity of commitment across 90 days. Cultivate mental toughness through deliberate exposure to challenge. Actively seek conditions that test resolve and require adherence to the committed path despite discomfort. Facing adversity deliberately strengthens the mind's ability to resist distraction, maintain focus, and continue executing under pressure. Over time, mental toughness becomes inseparable from identity, ensuring persistence even when external incentives waver. Visualize completion vividly and consistently. See the end state of the 90-day objective in precise, sensory detail. Imagine the satisfaction, pride, and transformation achieved through full dedication. Visualization creates a cognitive map of success that motivates execution and reinforces the belief that partial effort is incompatible with the envisioned outcome. Finally, embody a mindset of no retreat. Commit fully in thought, action, and identity. Remove escape routes, hedged bets, and contingency thinking. Align every decision with the 90-day objective, Protect focus rigorously, act decisively, and persevere through discomfort. Total commitment eliminates hesitation, magnifies effort, and transforms intention into reality. Over 90 days, living with no backup plans produces not only measurable results, but a transformation in character, resilience, and capability that extends far beyond the immediate goal. Absolute dedication creates momentum that cannot be reversed. The removal of alternatives forces the mind and body into a state of high performance, where compromise is impossible and action is inevitable. Each day compounds the power of focus. Each decision reinforces the principle of total engagement, and each challenge overcome solidifies the identity of someone who acts decisively and relentlessly. Commitment without contingency is the crucible in which extraordinary transformation is forged.